And we're on.
This is Sarah Blessington of the ScooterLifePodcast, and you're listening to Chasing Ghosts on Scooters in Bars.
Chasing Ghosts on Scooters in Bars parking lots. The podcast that blends the modern scooter lifestyle with a twist of the paranormal over a cool cocktail.
Bar reviews, scooter talk, ghost stories. We're an independent podcast that follows a group of modern and vintage Vespa riders in search of classic pubs, dive bars, and haunted taverns. Well, we used to. This is not smart or safe, but it's really fun. And as a disclaimer, we never encourage drinking and scooting and keep our intake to about a drink an hour.
That's...
give or take.
Right. How strong are the drinks?
And what's an hour, really?
Really? I mean, time is relative.
Time is relative.
Okay, so welcome to episode 39, Sarah's Scooter Life. Today we're featuring an interview with Sarah Blessington, the charming host of the ScooterLifePodcast. She rode her Sym Scooter across the United States solo, all by herself. Hear her adventure here.
Can't wait.
Hey, we'll also be talking to Dick Cameron, who we featured a couple of years ago with his Mexico cryptid story with an update. The house he purchased here locally in the area seems to have some paranormal activity.
Do we have a sound bite for it?
No, because we have time for that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just doing the intro. We're just coming into this. We're setting it up.
I'm too giddy.
And we took an essential ride up into the Cascade Mountain foothills for a very special birthday with some Jameson whiskey and coffee. Plus we have scooter news, spooky news, and all in this perky little podcast package.
Way to pick it up.
Hey, I got a new little addition I want to try out today.
Oh, did you run this by the producer?
I didn't. I
Here we go. What is
Otto took a nap out here while I was working on it. Some fun facts, just some fun facts that I found to be interesting, grabbed off social media, some from Uber Facts.
Oh.
Here's one I liked. This is the one that caught my attention. Albert Hoffman, the first known person to synthesize, ingest, and study LSD, lived to be 102 years old.
Really? I wonder if he would have listened to President Trump and injecting cleanser.
Well, it looks to me like he might have tried it. So
how do we know he's really dead at 102?
And I don't think he started till he was 98 either.
Okay, here's one. While less than 5% of the world's population live in the good old USA, they consume more than 37% of the world's available cocaine.
Yeah. I believe that.
Yeah.
We got a lot more to do here in the United States.
We have Miami Vice.
I mean, once you get started, you got to put it everywhere.
It just smells so good.
It does. It has that kind of medicine-y feeling to it. How about this? Mountain Dew was originally made to be a whiskey mixer.
I did not know that.
Yes. In fact, I saw a thing on the cooking channel or something where they talked about how they made it and how they were, back in the days when they were running whiskey and doing all that, they were mixing it.
And what era was this?
A long time ago.
So during your youth.
That's right. And finally, ketchup was sold as a medicine in the 1830s.
What type of medicine would that be?
Delicious with their French fries.
Transfusions, mainly.
Okay, here's one that gets a little bit more woo-woo. People that trust their gut instinct are more likely to predict the outcome of events more accurately, according to research published in the Journal of Consumer Research. So your gut instinct, your intuition
Initial
is really
intuition.
a valid thing. Yeah.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I'm debunking that.
I think it depends on what you ate.
That's right. All right, who do we have here today? We've got the coach,
Yep.
Scout.
Yes,
What's
sir.
been going on? What's happening?
Oh, just a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah, you're not back to school, obviously.
We're doing that from home, apparently.
So tell me how your tech skills have improved.
I've been forced to do some tech skills. I loathe it. I'm not a big fan.
Have you had some epic fails?
No, but I've had some epic arguments with my wife, who's tech savvy. And I beg for her help, and she it ends up. She tells me to fuck off.
She's trying to teach you more, to expand your awareness.
Throw you in the deep end. Swim, Mark.
And Pendominono, you were on time today, drove your scooter over, and wore a duster.
I think I had 3 minutes to spare, as a matter of fact.
That's like being 20 minutes early.
Exactly. In my book, it is, yes.
How was your day? What's been going on?
It was a busy day, good day. Just back in the office with all my people. So
selling some wood?
Yep. Selling a little bit of wood.
Any naughty pine?
There's some naughty pine.
Hey, and we have a special guest today, Dick Cameron. He's moved back down into the area, and he's been in Alaska and Mexico, and here he is. Welcome, Dick. What's been happening?
They kicked me out of Alaska.
And Mexico?
And Mexico.
There goes one of our international listeners.
Yeah, exactly.
God, we had some pretty good download numbers out of Mexico, too.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. I can't wait for your Spanish podcast to come out.
Oh, no, we just run it through the Google.
That's after several drinks.
Just after every comment, say "Que bueno."
And a little later, you're gonna tell us about what's been going on in your house.
Yeah, that's sort of a new feature that we didn't count on when we purchased the property.
It's extra. You got a roommate.
Yeah, had we known.
Wow. And I'm here. Yep, here I am.
Who's not here?
I started work again after being off for 5 weeks.
I was going to say, you're essential.
I'm now essential. We're fixing boats, and we're even open to sell a few of them. So today went crazy. I hear my dog barking in the other room.
That's
uncomfortable.
Your dog and your wife very happy they're back to work.
She's probably doing her best to keep him barking. There we go. We're going to stop for a moment. And we're back.
But who's not back? Somebody's missing here.
Yeah, it seems to be the lizard didn't make it.
Did he call in at least, or is he just
last minute cancellation?
Is he okay?
I think so. I think he wanted to spend a little time with his wife. I think he might have had an opportunity. Well, she'd had a bad day, and he said he had a bad day. So he's sticking around home, and
what a nice guy.
And Bobby Chong.
Fuck you, Lonnie.
Something came up.
Fucking pussy.
Bobby Chong didn't make it either. He's on a mission to go pick up his buddy Kick up in Whidbey and then drive down to Portland to pick up the new Vespa.
Very nice.
So they'll
be busy.
They're very busy. Here's some updates. Mark, your home country of Switzerland has shunned all shelter-in-place advice.
Okay, bullshit.
That's not true?
No. And just like so many other non-Swiss people, you confuse Switzerland and Sweden.
Well,
we are a landlocked nation.
They are both in Northern Europe.
Well, yeah. Sweden is the one doing
They both start with an S. And they're all...
Well, a capital S, yeah. But that's about where it ends.
How did you pull Switzerland out of that?
Well, because I always am attuned to anything Swiss.
Because the Amish are like that.
Got hung up on the SW.
All right. Last week, our podcast was with the guys from the Soldiers of Destiny Scooter Club about their award-winning film, Slow Ride Home. Remember that?
Well, I don't think you explained what the problem with Sweden and Switzerland was.
They weren't sheltering in place.
Yeah,
they
Sweden's
chose
doing the herd mentality.
Yeah.
It has the same percentage per capita problems that America does.
And I applaud them.
We effed up our entire economy.
Yep.
But they didn't?
No, they've got the same
percentages
per capita that we do. And they're just doing herd mentality.
They're monitoring the high-risk categories.
Yes.
That's it.
And everything else is wide open.
Based on what we've been doing, we're pretty wide open in this neighborhood. Shame on us.
But the economy still stinks.
In Sweden or here?
Here in America. Sweden is doing great.
Okay. So back to H1N1. We didn't do anything about it then, right?
Right.
Okay, this is probably a kind of a hot topic, and we are not a controversial podcast. So fuck you guys. So last week we talked to the guys of the SOD Scooter Club, Soldiers of Destiny,
Density,
about their award-winning film, Slow Ride Home. And They were waiting for Prime Video, and Prime Video has approved them. So their production can now be streamed right on Prime from Amazon.
Excellent.
So congratulations, really cool for those guys.
Good for you guys.
They're very excited. They're doing a live Facebook Q&A on Friday, tomorrow night. That would be
Facebook?
On May 1st. Yep.
What is that?
Facebook Live. It's a social media platform.
Oh.
Right.
You and I might not make it, Keith.
Okay, and finally, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google or Himalaya or at our Facebook page or anywhere you listen. We'd really appreciate it. It really helps us to stave off some of those other pesky scooter podcasts like the aforementioned Scooter Life podcast or the Sick Scooting in Southern Cal that's pushing at us, trying to out-content us and outrank us. But they haven't, because we are still the number one scooter podcast. Where?
In the world.
In the world.
So nice to hear.
Can I rate you now?
Yeah. Hey, guess what time it is?
Oh, I know what time it is.
Time for Scooter News. All right, Dateline, theultimatemotorcycling.com, byline Don Williams. Here's one.
The old country singer Don Williams?
No, I think he's a writer. He's a motorcycle rider.
Because Don Williams was a writer.
Yes, he was.
There is a first look, they say, of the Lambretta G325. They're calling their flagship scooter, so we have to assume it's a 325cc Lambretta. And I'll just quote old Don here. He says, although many Americans' knowledge of Italian scooters begins and ends with Vespa, aficionados of the genre are well-versed in the Lambretta brand. After all, Jimmy in the Who's Quadrophenia movie and double album rode a Lambretta LI 150 Series 3, underscoring its popularity with a mod culture figurehead. That particular movie scooter sold at a 2008 Bonhams auction for 36,000 pounds. That's heavy.
That's a lot.
Lambretta participated in the 125 GP class in the 2010 with the Ripardo Corsa team. Is that right, Keith? Say it. You're the race car guy. Yeah, that included Danny Kent, Isaac Vinales, Michael Vandermark, and the late Louis Salam.
You caught him in a sip.
I did. I mean, you could talk about every F1 Formula guy in the world all the way back, and you couldn't tell me that. Okay, jump ahead to the present day, and we're taking a look at the new 2020 Lambretta G325 Special in this Milan-based, look at this, Mark, Swiss-owned manufacturer of Italian-made scooters.
Wow.
And they've been at work every day.
Yes, they didn't miss
Apparently not.
a lick. Okay, it's technically only a concept scooter at this point, so no specs are available, but we would speculate that it'll have a 325cc or thereabouts motor. We do know that it will not be powered by electricity, as Lambretta will be introducing an electric scooter at the 2020 Delhi Auto Expo. Lambretta considered India to be an essential market for them. And of course, it's a huge scooter market. Mm-hmm. However, we do know that the 325 Special has a steel how do you say this?
Monocoque.
Thank you. Frame with interchangeable side panels. With interchangeable side panels. A courtesy light shaped like a Lambretta logo fires up when the rider gets close to the scooter. So it must have a fob, right?
I would think.
Wouldn't know your fingerprints.
That is an essential.
Lambretta has stated a goal of becoming the best-selling Italian scooter brand by 2028. So right now, Lambretta has 610 scooters in 37 countries, 72 years after being founded in Milan by Ferdinando Innocenti. The current bread and butter of the Lambretta brand is its V Special line, which has styling enhanced by Kiska, a design company that also works with KTM. The V Special models come with a 50, 125, and a 200 class motors. Different countries will get exclusive models such as the Special S series for Thailand, which will be designed to appeal to the taste of the local use. Future Lambretta plans include a hydrogen-powered scooter. Wow. That is fucking cool.
That's nuclear.
So here's what I like. You read the read the article, and then they have all the comments down there, and there's some people that liked it and some people that didn't. And there was one where someone said, well, it's just another moped. And the author who wrote this replied, no pedals, it's a scooter, not a moped. So he dissed him right there. So that was...
In the sake of news, and since Edward R. Murrow was educated in our state, I should point out the fact 610 dealers, not scooters.
Thank you. 610.
I don't want to confuse our listeners. That's how you stay number one, accuracy.
All right, what comes after scooter news?
Time for... wait, don't we have...
We do.
We have a lead-in?
We did not do our sound effects again. That is so frustrating. Let me see if I can figure it out. What time?
Not on the fly.
What time is it?
You're going to go to Jeopardy.
Okay, it's time for Spooky News. All right.
Well, you do have your panel figured out.
I'm getting there. So if you remember a while back, we did a podcast called Tote Goats and UFOs, and we discussed the film that was leaked to the New York Times about Navy fighter jet pilots shooting, getting video of UFOs. And you could argue if it's leaked, it's not really valid. Well, just this week, the U.S. government has officially released 3 video clips of unidentified objects recorded by U.S. Navy pilots. And I won't read you the whole article.
Thank you.
But it's here if you'd like to. What's really kind of cool is at the end, they basically said, we don't know what it is. We have no idea what it is. And
that would make it a UFO, right?
Right, but these are actual films shot by our Navy pilots, and we have no explanation.
Do you think it's coincidence that we just discussed the Lambretta G325?
No, I don't know. What does that mean? What's the connection?
Sorry.
This is how you end up on the cutting room floor, Keith.
You got to tie it together for us here.
I'll believe the Lambretta story when I
believe the
UFO story.
Oh, that's really good. Hey, the most exciting part about this particular spooky news is that we have Dick Cameron, before he dicks you, with us.
Most times,
hey, Dick, really, this is kind of exciting news. Your not so old little house, beautiful home that you have up on in the Five Heights area has been giving you some trouble. Why don't you just give us the story?
Well, I will. I'll be happy to. It's a little disappointing that the lizard isn't here because the home that I purchased up in the neighborhood belonged to his parents.
Right.
And so the ties to this group and our little scootering clique is even closer to home than actually being in my home. It started really, I didn't figure it out until recently, but it started several months back. I mean, I work in Alaska, and I come down here.
That's a hell of a commute.
It is, but I usually work 8 weeks on and 2 weeks off, so I come down here for some portions of my R&Rs. This R&R is going to be considerably longer than 2 weeks, forcibly due to COVID-19. But a lot of the times that I come through, it's a whirlwind of a trip with chores and honey-do lists, and sometimes we tag a trip onto it.
Sometimes you tag it?
Sometimes you tag it, sometimes you don't. One of the times, it was at Thanksgiving, and we had a lot going on, and I came in to town, and for whatever reason, that house goes through a lot of light bulbs. And one of my chores on the list was to change a bunch of burned-out bulbs. And I got into that chore, and I had a fair amount of inventory, and I had a certain style of bulbs that I was out of, and I ran to the Ace there and picked up a 4-pack of those bulbs, and I came back home, and it was the light fixture above the master bedroom, but the bed in the master bedroom.
So the strobe light.
The strobe, yeah.
He hit it with his ass.
with the mirror ball. Might have hit it with a wrist rocket. But so I took the shade off, the glass globe or whatever you want to call it, and as those things do, they'd collected a fair amount of dust and dead insects and things, and so I set the 4-pack of bulb down either on the chair I was standing on to access the light, or an identical chair that's in the hallway that's only about 4 feet further away. And I was in the bathroom cleaning out this light, and I come back in to reassemble everything, and I can't find the 4-pack of bulbs. Can't find them anywhere. I search in the garbage, search everywhere, just, I'm on R&R, so there's typically cocktailing going on. So I just kind of chalked it all up to, age and misplacing things, and maybe got started a little early that day. I don't know. So went back to Ace, bought another 4-pack. We did what we had to do, and then I go back to work, and 8 weeks later, I'm coming back through town. I only had 2 nights or 3 nights here in town before we were going to Mexico for 2 weeks to visit the place that we had sold. And I had brought back a stack of books from Alaska. There was about 4 or 5 new titles that I had purchased that I wanted to take back and take some to Mexico with me. And your brother, Bobby Chong, was up for dinner, and we were going through a bunch of comparing books that he'd read and some that he'd loaned me and some that I was loaning him.
Whose was bigger?
His is always bigger. You know that. And so the next day, when
it's a family thing.
The next day, when it was time to put books in my bag to take for reading material to Mexico, I couldn't find any of them. Not the books I had brought back from Alaska, not the 4 or 5 new titles that I had just purchased off of Amazon, none of it. And of course, my lovely wife was very, very quick to blame it on whatever sort of
Jim Beam again.
whatever sort of ingested item I might have had at the time. But
there's that cocaine again.
Or the LSD guy.
Yeah. Fast forward to this last week. All right. So I had gone back to Alaska after we came from Mexico, back to work, and was fortunate to get up there and get another month of work in before they shut us down due to the virus. Came back home, and we were getting reacquainted with the grandkids, like I like to do when I come to town. And we had them all over, and my wife, Kay, was videotaping with her phone the 3 grandkids playing a video game at the coffee table in our living room. And, you've seen the video. There's an orb on the television, and then another one comes of similar shape and size, comes from a similar area to the room, and it does basically an S maneuver around the kids on the table and then straight towards her to where she flinches. And she thought it was just some weird reflection that made her flinch. But then when she re-looked at the video, it was captured on there. It was recorded. We watched that several times. And then another video that she had taken earlier, there's a more faint, and it taking a completely different route to this one. And it's still daylight outside. There isn't the possibility of car light reflection coming in the window or something like that. There's still plenty of ambient light. We reviewed those several times, and the kids went to their bedrooms. It was getting that time of night, and the granddaughter screamed. I was outside. I didn't hear it. She screamed, but then calmed down instantly, and Kay went in to see what was going on, and she said she had seen a figure of a woman, and when she described her, she said it looked like her grandmother, but with long dark hair and sharp, pointy fingernails. So then that's, I guess, when I contacted you and said, maybe you ought to bring some of your gear over and we should try to measure things and see what's going on. and even in the back of my mind, I had this faint recollection of you saying, Mark, saying that, don't ever meter your own home. It's just not a great idea, which I agree with now.
That goes under don't eat where you shit.
Exactly.
Category.
Yeah. So
and don't date your mother. Oops. Is that I'm sorry.
Your mom's kind of high.
Sorry.
So we did that, right? You came over, you brought your stuff, and most of it you took back with you except the one.
I left an EMF meter.
Meter that has the lights that go from green, yellow to red. And we played around with that, and then we downloaded that app that you suggested on our phones, and we got, between the two of us, we got over 250 recorded words of this, and none of it really seemed to make too much sense to me or her. But there was, I suppose, if you could put it all together and had enough time.
Maybe that you did say that some of the words had to do with maybe the neighbors.
Yeah. Even the word neighbor was mentioned on 2 or 3 different
and the
occasions.
Last name of one of the women that lives next door.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, it said crook 3 times as you were leaving.
Unbelievable.
I can't figure that one out. So, at any rate, it to the point where we were almost obsessing with it. It was the night that we went for your birthday ride. Kay had gone to bed, and I was in the living room watching TV, and the ceramic logs in the gas fireplace shifted, and one of them broke. And there was no weather phenomenon going on outside. There was nothing. There's no wind or.
You get a lot of shit going on in that house.
Oh yeah, And so
now I see why you drink.
Yeah. And so I woke up Kay, and we came and brought the stuff out, and it didn't seem like there was more than normal activity, but she's like, forget about it. And she went back to bed, and I followed her to bed, and I didn't sleep at all, to tell you the truth. That entire night, it seemed like everything I heard had something strange to do with it, even though I know it was just my imagination working overtime. The next morning, we were having coffee, and we were sitting out there, and I'd taken the fireplace apart and looked at it and put everything back together. And you could clearly see where it had shifted from and how it needed to go back. And it wasn't like just a slight shift of things falling over. The whole backlog was broken in half, and then everything was shifted forward about 4 inches. And then the 2 vertical members had fallen down in the middle and blocked the entire flame nozzles. Wow. So I put all that back to the right configuration. We're sitting there, and she had that meter that you loaned us sitting on the couch next to her, and she's trying to, what do you think it is, and try to get to explain it. And then she says, it seems to be messing with you primarily. The light bulbs, the books, the fireplace, things that. And I said, well, that's strange because I don't want to see it. And that meter pegged to the red for several seconds, and it just bounced in the red.
Yeah, it wanted to see you. Maybe it saw you naked, and that's what this is.
Maybe that's it. Yeah,
and it's like, and the name of the story is Broken Log.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's at that point I decided that I was just going to shut everything down, going to turn the meter off, going to turn the app off, and then to wrap this whole thing full circle, I had to get a new phone today because my iPhone X was having all kinds of weird shit going on with the operating program. So I had to go had to go to AT&T and get a new phone, and it wouldn't connect to the internet at the house. It wouldn't connect to the Wi-Fi. So I had to go into the room where I have my bookshelves, had to go to the room to reset the router. As I shut that off, and I'm sitting down waiting for it, you give it's half a minute or whatever, I'm looking on the bookshelf, and all those missing titles, all those missing books are stacked neatly in those shelves.
Oh, did that give you a chill?
It did again just now, as a matter of fact.
Wow, that's Dick, that's exciting stuff. It went a little longer than we anticipated. Are you done?
I hope it's done.
Wow, that is really cool stuff, and I guess that's it for I don't know.
That's enough. That's a lot.
That is for spooky news. So
spooky news.
Here we go. Now I have to
hit a button. Just hit a button.
No, I don't know what I'm doing.
I'd have to go about another hour longer to beat Kevin O'Brien.
Hey, so we're back, and we're about to enter into the featured part of our exciting podcast besides Dick and the new...
So there's more.
There's is. This is going to be... Actually, this is about Sarah Blessington, who is the host of the Scooter Life podcast, who we have called out a couple of times on this podcast to say, hey, we want to talk to you.
And I like her voice.
Oh, she has a great sound and a great voice on her podcast. So go to ScooterLifePodcast.com and check it out and listen to Sarah. But here's our conversation with her just recently. Welcome, Sarah Blessington from the Scooter Life Podcast.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So you were in Washington in our stomping grounds, but you've moved.
That is true. I was in the Olympic Peninsula, just kind of across the water from Seattle, and I now find myself just north of Salt Lake City in Utah.
Up by the Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah. I have yet to go there, but I have heard that it's around here.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's quite a story. If you ever get a chance to read Hunt for the Skinwalker, it'll freak you out. It's really, really weird.
Good.
So you have quite a story, and I don't know all of it, obviously, and you have a podcast called the Scooter Life Podcast, which we brought up on our podcast before and had a little fun with you on it at your expense a little bit, and we challenged you to come on and talk to us, and I really appreciate that you took the time to do that. But to just put it clearly, why don't you just tell us the big picture of what the heck you did?
Sure. I guess I still kind of ask myself the same question of what was it that I did. But overall, I took a 171cc scooter, kind of similar to a Vespa, and went from San Francisco to North Carolina. Initially, I thought it was going to take me about a month, but then it ended up being about 5 months and 6,000 miles.
Holy Toledo. Your podcast is still telling the story, and it actually, the last episode is just as you were preparing to leave for your trip. So I would urge anybody that is listening to us to catch up to her first 6 episodes that talks about coming over to San Francisco and all the adventures of getting your scooter and all the trials and tribulations. One thing we don't get to hear about yet is the actual ride. So that's what we're going to talk about, I hope, today a little bit.
Yes.
Let's just just give us first of all, what were you riding? What was it?
It was a Sym HD 200.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
So it's a Taiwanese scooter. I kind of dove down a deep, dark hole on the internet researching any scooter in any of its existence. And this one really kind of rang true as something that would hold up to the test of time. And the bigger tires were also a huge selling point for me in the event of hitting any potholes or rocks, or in the event that I would have to take it off-road, which I did take it off-road. But yeah, it was definitely the right scooter for the job.
All right. So you started off in San Francisco a couple of years ago?
Yes. Actually, Facebook reminded me just yesterday that 4 years ago, yesterday, I announced to the internet that I was going to be starting on the scooter journey. So let's see. So yeah, that was back in 2016. And I mean, it took me, once I got started with the idea of like, oh, well, I need to get from Hawaii to North Carolina, and how can I do that most cost effectively? And then I made a spreadsheet, and then the scooter was the thing that came up as being a cheap way to do it. And I'm like, well, I'll just turn it into an adventure.
So tell us some of the highlights. What route did you take? And gee, I know you sound like a planner. You had a spreadsheet and a computer, but tell us kind of the route you took. Did you go Route 66 or what'd you do?
So a lot of it was just sort of wake up and Google where I'm going. And there wasn't a lot of a plan beyond this particular Facebook post that I mentioned. A lot of friends that I have been so fortunate to have made all over the U.S. just started popping up and inviting me to stay. And that's how I got started with my route, is just kind of thinking, well, I mean, at first I really didn't know how many miles I would be able to put in a day. In my initial research, I had discovered this one woman. Her blog, I think now how she exists on the internet, is Daily Coyote. And so she had ridden a Vespa she actually started in the same scooter store that I had discovered the HD 200, the Sym Scooter. And they told me about her, which was super refreshing, that someone else had survived doing what I was planning on doing. So in her blog, I mean, one of the old versions of a blog, she talks about doing about 300 miles. So I kind of had an overall estimation of how far I could go before I needed to sleep. And I don't know, this woman may actually just be a machine, but 300 miles for me on my scooter was really trying.
That's a big day.
And yeah, it's a really big day when you can really, I mean, another little tidbit, I didn't know that the scooter speedometer was, that they increase, like they show you that you're going faster than you actually are after you go 35 miles per hour. So I think in all reality, I don't think I was going much faster than 55 ever. And with the wind and all that. But so I started just sort of plugging in little ideas on a spreadsheet of where I would go. And then once I got started, I would just kind of try to plan-ish, at least for the next place where I was sleeping. And then a lot of it got thrown out the window once I got started, and would just sort of have to, I don't know, play it by ear. And I met a lot of really nice people along the way that gave me suggestions of campgrounds, places to stay, or staying in their own homes. And yeah, gas stations and parking lots are really great ways to meet people when you're wearing a bright pink motorcycle jacket and have this ridiculous little scooter filled to the brim with brightly colored bags.
And so you must have had a tent if you're in some camping grounds.
Yeah, so I started out with a hammock and a bivy sack, so a little Gore-Tex kind of sleeping bag sock. And I figured that would get me pretty far. And starting off, like within the first month of the journey, I had camped in Death Valley. That was about 118 degrees, and that was uncomfortable, to say the least. So I used the hammock for that, and had like encounters with coyotes, and of course, that's just how that works. And then the next night, I actually camped at the base of Mount Whitney, which was like low 40s, high 30s, which was cold.
Yeah, in one day, in one 24-hour period.
Yeah, it was a little shocking to the system, I'll say. But yeah, so that did me pretty well until I eventually came to Colorado, which is where I had a good bit of my belongings stored, which is part of the reason why I started this trip, was to go reclaim my leather boots and birth certificate that my friend had been housing for me for 4 years prior to that. And that's when I switched to like a 2-person tent, which ended up being really useful as I got into more populated areas, being able to camp and like actually have some space to be away from people. And it also made me feel a little bit more comfortable that like maybe there could be 2 people in the campsite as opposed to just me.
Exactly. So you were averaging then on a daily basis 150 miles?
Yep. Anywhere from like 150 to 250. That was sort of my jump. And then every once in a while there'd be those crazy try to hit 300-mile days, which were brutal.
Yeah. And if you did 6,000 miles, you were zigzagging a little bit across the country.
That is true. Let's see. So the highest point I went to on the western part was just like right around Lake Tahoe. And then I went down to Phoenix and then up through like Salt Lake City, just past, actually pretty close to where I am now. And then down again through Colorado and then to the bottom of Texas, almost to the Mexico border. And that's where I experienced my second breakdown of the trip and the catastrophic, the sweet end to my first scooter, Jolene. Yeah, so that was the CVT belt had previously blown when I was right outside of Roswell, New Mexico, which is a convenient place for that to all happen.
A lot of strange things happen in Roswell.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It definitely did not make me feel any more at ease that that's where that was all happening.
So you got it fixed in Roswell, but then it broke. Then it gave up the ghost in Texas?
Yes. Yes. Unfortunately, the repair that I had done there, this one particular bolt needed to be to a very specific tightness. And I don't think that actually ended up happening. And so then I got another 300 miles away from them, and then it burst again and it kind of melted the rest of the engine.
So what'd you do?
Well, I was in the middle of Big Bend National Park, and it was a beautiful day. And kind of as I was taking stock of like when it happened, I knew it was not good. And I sat on the side of the road and put out a little video on Facebook, my Facebook page, just kind of letting folks know that I had broken down and I was pretty sure that this one was going to be serious, and I had no idea what was going to happen next. And by the grace of strangers on the internet, people started sharing my video, and one thing led to another. And I had the person I was previously staying with, he came out to rescue me with his trailer. So I was able to get the scooter out of there. And then a stranger on the internet who found me on North American Biker Rescue, their Facebook page. And so he drove 6 hours from San Antonio to come get me.
Wow.
And then we loaded up the scooter in the back of his truck and drove another 6 hours back in the same day. And then another stranger on the internet, I think that was like 2 degrees or 3 degrees of separation, that he offered for me to stay on his couch as long as I needed to, and that I could have use of his vintage Vespa scooters to get around town while everything got sorted. And yeah, so these incredible, sweet angels of the universe just kind of swooped down and picked me up, and carried me through this next bit of information that I would get, that once I did get my scooter looked at, that's when I was kind of given the death order of Jolene, that it was either going to take an entire engine replacement, which was the cost would be more than the scooter itself, or I could sell her for parts, which would be about $300, which for me was a flight back to North Carolina, where that's where I was headed. So I was kind of given this opportunity to decide, is my trip over or not? And so I put out another sort of kind of blip to the internet of what am I supposed to do? And another stranger on the internet who was following me on ADV Writer, he decided to create a GoFundMe for me and didn't give me the password until 3 days later, when I almost had everything I needed to be able to either repair the scooter or look to get another scooter, because as luck would have it, they had the same exact scooter, just 2 years newer, for sale at that shop, so that I would be able to actually take the rack that I had made for my previous scooter, Jolene, and put it on the new scooter and keep going. And it was just this incredible realization of just what it means to ask for help, and that people were really excited about the story that I was sharing and just really believed that I could do it, and they wanted to see me finish. So I ended up getting my new scooter. Her name became Bowie, and was able to finish the journey from San Antonio. So then the journey continued, went about as far east as the Panhandle in Florida, and then up through Alabama and Tennessee, and then jumped the border into North Carolina.
Wow. And this was you say 6,000 miles and how many months?
About 5 months.
Wow. How cool. Now, I got to ask, any great bars along the way?
Yes, definitely more than one.
Any that you remember specifically that you could comment on?
Oh, man. It's so hard to pick out just one, but I will say one of my favorite ones early on in the trip was right outside of Mammoth Lake, California. And it's a bar that's in a gas station.
Oh, cool.
And they do live music, I think on Tuesdays when the summer months are there. And they had a live funk band, and I had no idea that was happening, and stumbled about it with a friend that I was staying with. And I mean, it's pretty cool to be able to just go to a self-serve window outside of a gas station. And it was a super fun evening, being able to dance the night away.
Did you have your toga on from the toga party?
I didn't have a toga on, but I did have, I found it necessary to bring a dress on the scooter trip, which
Nice.
made me feel more like a human whenever I was just completely covered with dust and
Hang
bugs.
on a minute. Let me get my dress on. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, would make me feel like less of a scooter human and more of like an adventure human. So I was wearing my scooter dress.
Oh, good for you. And then the other thing I have to ask, any paranormal experiences at all? Anything that made you scratch your head?
You know, I've been trying to think of that. I would say there's this one circumstance. Let's see, I was outside of Carlsbad Caverns, where they're famous for the bats that come out when the sun starts to set. And I was super excited about seeing the bats, but there was already just a lot of, I was having a lot of nerves because I was getting closer and closer to Texas, which is huge and big, and I do no one, and the distance between gas stations is substantial, and there's just not a lot of secondary roads that aren't just as scary as highways down there. So I just sort of was in a weird place anyway, and I was waiting there for the bats, and just I could feel the wind start to shift and like the silence in the air. And I mean, I don't know, but I looked behind me and I've never seen clouds as tall as they were. And I was just watching them build further and further into the stratosphere, and looking around me, no one is paying attention, and everyone seems totally fine and doesn't care that there's like giant clouds behind us. I just decided to listen to whatever was telling me that I should leave there as soon as possible and find cover. and my phone started going off, letting me know that there was tornadoes in the area, 50-mile-per-hour winds, and hail the size of golf balls.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So luckily I got out of there, but I don't know. It felt very spooky and eerie to me, and it wasn't but more than, I don't know, a second or two. At my campsite, there was this, not the best solution, but at least it was covered. There was this metal covering that I pulled my scooter under right before the sky just opened up, and it was the craziest hailstorm I've ever seen in my life.
And you had an early warning system going on from your guides.
Right? Who knows? Maybe it was ghosts. I don't know.
That's great.
But yeah,
we talked to a couple of people that did the Cannonball run this weekend, and
awesome.
Their story was oddly similar.
Really?
Yeah, they had a weather-related paranormal, or they thought might be on the edge of paranormal. So that's interesting that both of them were. So you got to the Carolinas.
I did.
Safely, intact.
Yeah.
And somehow you made it all the way back across the United States to live in Washington and now Utah. What happened there?
Oh man, who knows?
Yeah, just did.
Yeah, I mean, there's part of me that after doing something like that and the adventure that, trying to still find ways to keep that adventure alive in myself and to feed that hunger to, there's just nothing like meeting people, to just continuously meeting strangers in their own environment and just kind of catching them unawares, like going into a bar where the same people see the same people every day and just sitting down and being able to have conversations with them and, being exposed to their life and their stories. Like, that's one of my favorite things. So I'm just kind of continuously chasing that.
Good for you. And there's probably a book in there somewhere.
I am currently writing the scooter book.
Oh, yes. Good. Well, we're looking forward to that. And then, do you still have Bowie?
I do. Bowie is currently under plastic in my mom's garage, but where I sit right now, I have half a mind to stay here for longer than a few months. So I am contemplating a rescue mission for Bowie.
There you go.
My friends are all telling me that I should get it shipped out here, but there is still that little part of me that wants to write her back out.
Well, if that happens, we want to be following you on that. So
thank you.
That's very exciting. Well, tell us how do we find your podcast? And you also have the SarahBlessington.com, I think.
Yes, I do. So I've got SarahBlessington.com, which kind of is a hodgepodge of anything or everything that I've been doing throughout my adventurous life. Also have Kimber Me Ginger on Facebook and then my Instagram is at Sarah Blessington. And then I've got my the ScooterLife podcast, which is my podcast, which sort of has paused, but will live again.
Well, it has a very approachable tone, and it's charming. It really is. And so nice work, and thank you, Sarah Blessington, for blessing our podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, have a good one.
You too.
All right. Wow, how about Sarah's voice?
I like it.
She's got a great voice. But I think she needs a map. 6,000 miles to get across the United States.
Well, she did say she woke up each morning and looked at Google and made a decision on where she was going to ride that day. So I get that. I think how cool to have that time in front of you to have those adventures and go to some great bars and
to be young and do it. That's usually
absolutely.
An old retired journey.
And to trust Google that much.
Yeah. Well, I was really glad.
Did she die? What's this music about?
This is just our acoustic loop that goes down.
I am not a fan of this.
Well, some people are.
COVID-19 strikes again.
Snake this down.
So, Sarah, thank you very much for your
thank you, Sarah.
Your time that you spent, those 20 minutes of uninterrupted interview, and all the way from Utah at the Skinwalker Ranch. I'd like to see you get there and give us a report, maybe as a stand-in reporter, something like that. This is Sarah Blessington from the Skinwalker Ranch.
A live report.
And you're listening to Chasing Ghosts on Scooters in bars.
The number one podcast in the world.
Hey, and thanks to our listeners, with all of you. I mean, how many do you think there are?
We should be able to name them.
Thanks to Sarah. And thanks, Dick, for coming over and joining us.
You're welcome.
As
Thanks
our
for having me.
Guest today, and weeknights for the acoustic soul that you're listening under here.
And so this is the end of the road.
This is it. What, you want to talk about our ride?
What about your ride?
Well, Mark planned a ride for my birthday.
Well, not necessarily.
It wasn't for my birthday?
Well, it had to be because
It was on my birthday.
I know, but unlike most adults, or like we are grown-ass men,
Yeah.
birthdays are not that big a deal. But for you,
I thought I
something has to
downplayed
be
it this
done.
year.
No, Keith is the one that texted, "Hey, it's Mark's birthday on Friday."
Yeah,
To
thank
Lonnie
you,
and I.
Keith.
And then
Let's pick a day he can't go.
which we all knew because you remind us the entire month of April. So we just decided to go on a scoot. It was a nice day, and we went on a scoot.
You know, we rode up the back way, excuse me, up to Buckley,
Yeah,
and we ended up at a bar.
we did.
The bar was only doing takeout, but they took out right outside to us.
Right out in their little patio.
Had a little pizza.
And you
That's
found,
good
you
pizza,
found-
too.
Yeah, and you found something in your scooter.
I did. I think it was some Jameson.
Goes with coffee.
Yeah. So we had a little Irish coffee wannabes, and we were out there, and that was a gift from Pandamanono on our rides. It was his idea. It was his day, but he didn't get to go.
I was jealous all day.
And yeah, it's a different way to ride for this group, to go find closed bars and parking lots.
But we're still trying.
Yeah, we are.
In the hope that we find a janitor or somebody.
We'll work for beer. God, this music, I can't do it. Let's just end it. I feel like I'm on a life support machine right now. Pull the plug.
Euthanize it.
Just
Euthanize
done.
it.
All right, it's off, Mark. I turned it off. All right, everybody keep the rubber side down, head on a swivel, and be safe. But get out there and do not jeopardize yourself. Be right, be sane. Don't drink and drive, but have a blast. And we will see you when the bars are, I don't know, open again. Copyright 2020 by Chasing Ghosts on Scooters in Bars.
Are we done with this shit now?
It was shit, wasn't it?